The courtroom of Fairmont Parish, room 3B, hummed with the thick air of anticipation. A solitary ceiling fan spun lazily above, its blades slicing through the silence. Benches groaned under the weight of hushed whispers and glances that spoke volumes. Erica sat alone at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Her eyes were fixed on the front of the room. At home, her son, Jaden, was recovering from a broken wrist and a face bruised with a sickening purple-black. Across the aisle, Officer Lillian Vance sat, polished and unmoving. She was the picture of professionalism, but her serene expression was edged with something cold. According to her statement, Jaden had tried to steal a candy bar and had lunged at her. She had simply responded with necessary force. Yet, the security footage from the convenience store, which conveniently had a missing minute, showed Jaden walking out calmly. Eyewitnesses from the neighborhood stated that he had offered to pay, but Vance never gave him the chance. Judge Davenport, a man with a tired pallor, barely looked up from his notes. He treated Erica's attorney like a minor inconvenience. "Get to the point," he grumbled. When the pediatrician took the stand to describe Jaden's defensive wounds and head trauma, Davenport didn't flinch. That it was then that the door creaked open and a man entered, unhurried and composed. He wore a simple gray trench coat, carried no briefcase, and had no visible badge. He took a seat quietly in the third row. He didn't speak or blink, just watched. Lillian Vance noticed him. Her smile flickered, a nearly imperceptible crack in her flawless facade. Her attorney leaned in close. "Do you know him?" "No," she muttered, her gaze still fixed on the man. "But he's watching like he owns this whole place." Erica took the stand. Her voice trembled as she recounted the moment Jaden stumbled home, bleeding and shaking, repeating, "Mama, I didn't do anything." Next, Officer Kyle Benson testified, stating his unwavering trust in Vance's judgment. The judge waived any cross-examination. Vance herself took the stand, still polished and poised. "I feared for my safety," she recited, a familiar refrain. It wasn't about his race. Her words were smooth, too smooth. The man in gray shifted slightly, just enough for her to catch the movement. Her eyes darted toward him and then quickly away. He hadn't moved, but his pen did, a quiet scratching sound on paper. No one knew who he was. During a recess, the courtroom clerk, Maria Vega, approached him, a bottle of water in her hand. "You good, sir?" she asked. Before he could answer, another officer, Officer Sterling, stepped between them. "He's fine," Sterling said, his voice gentle but firm. Maria nodded and walked away. The man, Miles Duval, simply gave her a quiet nod in return. No one knew he had just been appointed to oversee internal affairs for the Fairmont Parish Department. He wasn't there to intervene. He was there to listen that a woman in the back row whispered to her neighbor, "He's not just watching. He's waiting." "Waiting for what?" her neighbor replied. "For this room to tell on itself," she said. When Lillian Vance stepped off the stand, she walked directly toward Miles. "Filing in court is a felony," she whispered. Miles didn't reply. His silence unnerved her. She leaned closer. "You people think your silence makes you holy, but we run this room." With a flick of her wrist, she slid a folded paper into his coat pocket and walked away as if nothing had happened. Seconds later, she raised her voice just enough to be heard. "Officers, I believe this man may be in possession of restricted documents." Officer Sterling approached him. "Sir, may we check your coat?" Miles nodded at once and calmly handed over his notebook. Officer Chavez reached into the coat and pulled out the paper. His brow furrowed as he read it. "It's a personnel report." Vance folded her arms, a satisfied smirk on her face. Sterling looked at Miles. "Care to explain?" Miles didn't blink. He simply shook his head. Gasps rippled through the room. Maria Vega, the court clerk, stood at the back, watching the scene unfold. Her jaw tightened. Then, she stepped forward. "Your Honor," she called out. The judge barely looked up. "I'd like to submit a statement. I was present when Officer Vance left her desk unattended earlier, and I saw her holding that very same piece of paper before the recess." A heavy hush fell over the room. Vance turned slowly, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "That's not," she started. But Judge Davenport held up a hand. "This is a regular proceeding," he said, but for the first time, his voice cracked. Erica sat motionless, her knuckles white on the wooden table. Miles remained still, his notebook closed now, his eyes locked not on Vance, but on the judge. Somewhere behind them, a bailiff whispered into a radio. Judge Davenport banged his gavel twice. "This is a civil hearing. Remove any disruptions from the room immediately." Lillian Vance didn't flinch. Her arms were crossed. Her stare lingered on Miles Duval, as if daring him to break. But he didn't. Maria Vega narrowed her eyes. She had seen Lillian lean in earlier, too close, too deliberate. She said nothing, but she was watching. And near the back, a woman named Darlene whispered, "He's not panicking. He's letting her bury herself." Chavez turned to Miles. "Sir, do you have anything to say?" Miles didn't move, but his silence now felt different, like a person who knew exactly what was coming next. Vance sat up straighter, but for the first time, a flicker of doubt passed through her eyes. Court resumed. Judge Davenport cleared his throat. "I've reviewed the plaintiff's motion." Motion denied. Jaden's mother covered her mouth with a trembling hand. Her cheeks were wet, though she wasn't sobbing anymore. Jaden reached out, his voice small. "It's okay, Mama. We knew they wouldn't believe us." "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "You just want a candy bar." Davenport glanced their way, annoyed. "Ma'am, please maintain decorum." She nodded quickly. The silence between her and her son said more than any words ever could. Vance took the stand again, her voice crisp. "I feared for my safety." The young man was uncooperative, advancing toward me. I acted as any officer would. Her eyes brushed across the courtroom and paused on Miles. "We make decisions in real time. I did what was necessary." Judge Davenport gave a slight nod, not a ruling, but approval. The defense team looked pleased. And through it all, Miles sat motionless. In a hallway after court, people moved around him without speaking. Some avoided his gaze. Some glanced briefly, then looked away. He sat near the wall, quiet, still. Vance exited moments later, her heels clicking against the floor. She spotted him and walked directly over. "I've seen your type," she said, her voice a dagger wrapped in velvet. "Pretending you're neutral. But I know what you're doing." Miles said nothing. "You people think silence makes you strong. It doesn't. It just makes you invisible." He still didn't respond. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper laced with venom. "You'll fade. You always do." She shoved him hard. His back hit the marble wall, and he slid to the floor. Gasps scattered down the corridor that a woman holding her phone had just tapped record. Her camera captured everything. The impact, the grin flickering across Vance's face, the way Miles quietly stood, brushed off his coat, and straightened his sleeve. He didn't speak. He didn't retaliate. But when he looked at Vance, something shifted. Not anger, but something older, wiser. Her voice caught. Her confidence cracked. Voices whisper behind them. He didn't even flinch. The woman lowered her phone slowly, her eyes wide. She didn't know who Miles was, but something in that silence rattled her. Miles turned back toward the courtroom. Vance didn't follow. Inside, the defense smirked. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss all charges." Officer Vance acted within reason. "There is no solid evidence of misconduct." Judge Davenport raised his gavel, then paused. A calm, clear voice cut through the room. "Your Honor, that won't be necessary." Every head turned. Miles was on his feet, walking toward the bench with unshakable purpose. Vance froze. Her colleague whispered her name, but she didn't respond. Miles stopped before the judge. Reaching into his coat, he pulled out a leather badge case. He flipped it open. "Miles Duval, Federal Investigator, Department of Civil Rights." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Davenport leaned back. Miles continued. "We've been monitoring misconduct reports tied to Officer Vance for over a year. Today, that investigation reaches its conclusion." He turned to Vance. "You tampered with evidence. You assaulted a federal officer. You lied under oath. And now you will face the consequences." Vance opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her face drained of color. Miles stepped aside as two plainclothes agents entered the courtroom. One read Vanserites. The other escorted her out. She didn't resist. Erica clutched Jaden's hand. He looked up wide-eyed. Mama, he was one of the good guys. She nodded slowly, tears falling again. The best kind. The quiet kind. Judge Davenport cleared his throat. This court is adjourned, pending further review. But no one moved. All eyes were on Miles as he returned to his seat, calm as ever. The notebook remained in his pocket, its final page marked with a name, Lillian Vance. Underneath it, one word had been added, counted. In the silence that followed, it was no longer the officer's voice anyone remembered, but his. Without saying a word,